So printing is one of those things that never really feels like it has gotten cheaper over time. In fact, it often feels like the opposite. And right in the middle of that conversation, you've got ink cartridges, the small, simple-looking consumables that somehow end up costing more than you expect over the long run. Today we're focusing on the Brother LC4063PK Cyan, Magenta, and yellow ink cartridges, and the real question behind them isn't just what they are, but whether they actually make sense for every day. Users in 2026. On paper, this is a pretty straightforward setup. You're getting a standard color set designed for compatible Brother printers. Nothing flashy, nothing experimental. Just the basics needed to keep your printer running in full color. But ink has never been about how simple it looks in the packaging. The real story starts after installation, when you actually begin printing real documents. Installation itself is refreshingly simple. These cartridges slot in without any unnecessary complexity, no confusing alignment steps, and no frustrating setup loops. If you've used a Brother printer before, the process feels familiar almost instantly. It's one of those rare moments where things just work the way you expect them to. But the real test begins when you hit that print button. In everyday use, starting with standard documents, the output is clean and sharp. Text remains crisp, edges are well-defined, and there's no visible smudging under normal conditions. This is the baseline expectation for any ink system, but it's still worth noting when it's done properly and consistently. When you move into color printing, things get a bit more interesting. Cyan and Magenta play a major role in overall vibrancy, and in this case, the balance feels carefully tuned. Colors don't look exaggerated or artificial, but they also don't come across as dull or faded. Instead, there's a controlled, natural look that works well for office documents, school projects, and general home printing. It's important to understand what these cartridges are designed for. They are not trying to compete with high-end photo lab systems. Instead, they sit in that practical middle space where reliability matters more than extreme color grading. For most users, that's actually exactly what's needed. Now, yield is where things start to matter more in the long term. While manufacturer estimates often look generous, real-world usage depends heavily on what you're printing. A mix of documents and occasional color pages gives you a decent lifespan before replacements are needed. It's not something you'll replace every week, but it's also not something you can forget about for months if you print regularly. One thing that often gets overlooked is how color consumption behaves in real usage. Cyan and Magenta tend to drain faster when printing graphics or anything with heavy backgrounds. This isn't specific to this cartridge set. It's just how most color ink systems work, but it becomes noticeable over time if you're not expecting it. Reliability is where these cartridges perform well. There are no streaking issues, no clogging after short periods of inactivity, and no unexpected calibration problems after installation. That level of consistency might sound basic, but anyone who has used lower quality third-party ink knows how important it really is. And that brings us to the bigger decision: value. There are always cheaper alternatives available. Refills, compatible cartridges, and budget replacements all promise savings up front. But the trade-off is usually consistency. With official cartridges like these, what you're really paying for is predictability. You install them, and they perform the way they're supposed to without surprises. That predictability becomes more valuable the more you rely on your printer. Whether it's documents for work, school assignments, or important forms, printing is one of those things where failure always seems to happen at the worst possible moment. And that's where reliability starts to matter more than saving a few extra dollars up front. So the decision becomes pretty simple. If you want the lowest possible cost, there are options out there. But if you want something stable that just works every time without thinking about it, this fits right into that category. In the end, the Brother LC4063PK color cartridges don't try to reinvent anything. They're not flashy, They're not experimental, and they're not trying to be something they're not. They're built for consistent, everyday printing, and they do exactly that. And in a world where even simple tech can overcomplicate itself, sometimes the most valuable thing is just having something that works exactly as expected every single time.